Rainwater dripped from the edge of the diner's rusted roof, falling in uneven rhythms like a clock that had long forgotten how to keep time. Inside, beneath flickering yellow lights, she moved quickly, almost invisibly between tables, balancing plates and silence with equal precision. No one noticed her exhaustion, the way her hands trembled slightly after every shift, or how her eyes carried stories no one had ever bothered to read. To them, she was just a waitress, replaceable, forgettable. But that night, everything changed. Before we begin, take a moment. If you believe in kindness and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be felt, not just heard. Her name was Elara. At 24, life had already taken more from her than most people lose in a lifetime. She had grown up in a cramped apartment where hope was a luxury they couldn't afford. Her father had disappeared when she was 10, leaving behind nothing but unpaid bills and a silence that lingered like a shadow. Her mother worked herself into exhaustion, trying to hold their fragile world together, but illness came quietly and took her away before Elara could even understand what goodbye truly meant. By 16, Elara was alone. She learned quickly that the world did not pause for grief. Rent was due, hunger was real, survival became her only goal. School faded into memory, replaced by long hours in greasy kitchens and sleepless nights filled with quiet tears. Dreams? Those were things other people had. Yet, despite everything, there was something unbroken inside her, a quiet resilience, a refusal to completely give up. She smiled at customers even when her heart felt hollow. She helped strangers even when she had nothing left to give. It was as if some small part of her still believed that goodness mattered, even in a world that had shown her very little of it. That rainy evening, the diner was nearly empty. The storm had driven most people indoors, leaving behind only the hum of old appliances and the occasional rumble of thunder. Elara wiped down a table near the window, her reflection staring back at her in the glass, tired eyes, pale skin, and a quiet sadness she had long stopped trying to hide. The bell above the door rang. She barely looked up at first. Another customer, another order, another moment to survive. But something felt different. He stepped inside, shaking the rain from his coat. Tall, composed, and carrying an air of quiet authority, he didn't belong in a place like this. His presence seemed almost out of place against the chipped walls and worn-out chairs. Yet his eyes, sharp and observant, moved slowly across the room, taking in everything. And then they stopped on her. For a brief moment, time seemed to pause. Elara looked away quickly, returning to her work. She had learned long ago not to meet people's eyes for too long. It invited questions, and she didn't have answers she wanted to share. He took a seat by the window. She approached him with the same practiced smile she gave everyone else, but something about him made her feel unusually aware of herself. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the glass like a heartbeat echoing in the silence between them. She took his order, her voice steady despite the strange tension in the air. He spoke politely, but there was something deeper in his gaze, something that felt like recognition, though they had never met before. As she walked away, she felt it again, that unfamiliar sensation of being seen. Not judged, not dismissed. Seen. It unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. The night continued, but something had shifted. She found herself glancing toward his table more often than necessary. He didn't rush, he didn't check his phone. He simply sat there, watching the rain, as if he had all the time in the world. When she brought his food, he thanked her with a sincerity she wasn't used to. It wasn't the words, it was the way he said them, as if they actually meant something. People usually didn't thank her like that. When he finished, he left quietly. But he left something behind. Not just a tip, though it was far more than she had ever received, but a note, folded neatly beside the empty plate. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked it up. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones no one notices, but they are the ones who change the world. She read it twice, then a third time. Her chest tightened, and for reasons she couldn't explain, her eyes filled with tears. No one had ever said something like that to her before. No one had ever looked at her and seen strength. That night, as she walked home under the fading rain, she held on to that small piece of paper like it was something precious, something rare. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar stirring inside her. Hope. But she didn't know yet that this was only the beginning, because the man who walked into her life that night was not just a stranger. He was a storm far greater than the one outside, and he was about to change everything. The next morning felt strangely different, though nothing around her had changed. The same narrow streets, the same worn-out shoes, the same heavy exhaustion clinging to her bones. But inside, something was quietly shifting. The note still rested in her pocket, its edges slightly crumpled from how often she had unfolded and read it through the night. Elara tried to ignore it. Hope was dangerous. It had a way of making reality feel even harsher when it shattered. Still, she couldn't forget him. Days passed, then a week. Life returned to its usual rhythm. Long shifts, empty rooms, silent dinners. The moment began to feel like a dream, something her tired mind had created to escape reality. Until he came back. It was late afternoon when the bell above the diner door rang again. Elara didn't need to look up to know it was him. There was something unmistakable about his presence, calm, grounded, almost magnetic. Her heart skipped. This time, he didn't sit by the window. He chose a table closer to the counter, closer to her. Their eyes met again, and this time she didn't look away as quickly. There was hesitation, curiosity, and something fragile beginning to form between them. Over the following weeks, he became a regular. He never asked too many questions. He never pushed. He simply showed up, ordered simple meals, and spoke to her with a kindness she wasn't used to receiving. Slowly, almost without realizing it, she began to open up, just a little at a time. She told him about her long shifts, about how she used to love drawing as a child, about how life had taken unexpected turns. But she left out the pain. He listened, truly listened. And then, one evening, everything changed. He asked her a simple question. If you could start over, what would you want? The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her that before. She didn't answer immediately. Her mind searched for something realistic, something safe. But instead, something honest slipped out. I'd want a life where I don't feel invisible. The words lingered between them. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, with quiet certainty, he replied that invisibility wasn't her truth. It was just the world failing to see her. That night, he made her an offer. A job. Not in the diner, but at one of his companies. Elara froze. She didn't understand at first. It felt absurd, impossible. She was a waitress with no degree, no connections, no place in a world like his. And that's when he told her the truth. He wasn't just a customer. He was a billionaire. The kind of man whose name appeared in headlines, whose decisions shaped industries, whose world existed far beyond anything she had ever known. The revelation hit her like a wave. Everything about him suddenly made sense, the confidence, the calm, the way he carried himself. But it also made the distance between them feel impossibly large. Why would someone like him care about someone like her? Suspicion crept in. Life had taught her that nothing came without a price. She hesitated, questioned, doubted, but he didn't pressure her. He simply told her that sometimes all a person needs is a chance, and that he believed she deserved one. That night, she didn't sleep. Her thoughts were tangled with fear and possibility. What if it was a mistake? What if she failed? What if this was all some cruel illusion? But beneath all the doubt, there was something else, a quiet voice reminding her of the girl who once dreamed. The next day, she said yes. The transition was overwhelming. Her new world was nothing like the diner. Glass buildings, polished floors, people dressed in confidence and expectation. She felt out of place, like she had stepped into someone else's life. The whispers started almost immediately. People questioned her presence, her background, her worth. She heard them, felt them, but she didn't run. For the first time in her life, she chose to stay and fight. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. She worked harder than she ever had before, determined to prove that she belonged, not because of him, but because of herself. She learned quickly, adapted, grew. And slowly, something remarkable happened. People started to notice her, not as the waitress who didn't belong, but as the woman who refused to give up. Meanwhile, his presence in her life deepened. What began as kindness evolved into something more complicated, more intense. There was an unspoken connection between them, something neither of them fully understood, yet couldn't ignore. But with it came challenges. His world was filled with expectations, scrutiny, and pressure. Their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed, and not everyone welcomed it. Elara found herself standing at a crossroads. She had fought so hard to build something of her own. Could she risk losing herself in a world that wasn't made for her? And more importantly, could she trust him? Because love, she knew, was the most dangerous risk of all. And this story was far from over. The higher Elara climbed, the heavier the weight became. Success did not come gently. It came with scrutiny, whispers, and silent battles no one else could see. The same people who once ignored her now watched her closely, waiting for her to fail. Every mistake felt magnified, every success questioned. But she didn't break. She remembered the girl who had nothing, the nights she went to bed hungry, the feeling of being invisible. Compared to that, this struggle was different. This time, she had something to fight for. And slowly, undeniably, she began to rise. Her ideas brought change. Her determination inspired others. The company that once felt like choosy territory began to feel like something she was shaping with her own hands. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming. But the greatest challenge wasn't her career. It was her heart. Her connection with him had grown into something undeniable. It wasn't just admiration or gratitude. It was something deeper, something that scared her more than anything else ever had. Because loving him meant risking everything. One evening, standing on the balcony of a towering building, overlooking a city of endless lights, she realized something. She was no longer invisible, and she was no longer the same girl. But with that realization came fear. Did she belong in his world, or had she simply been placed there? Before the ending, a special request. Comment below with "She deserved this" if you believe her journey matters. The answer came not from him, but from herself. She had earned every step, every scar, every struggle, every moment. And when he finally confessed what had long remained unspoken, that he loved her, not for who she had become, but for who she had always been, she understood something powerful. She was never chosen because she needed saving. She was chosen because she was strong. Their love wasn't a fairy tale handed to her. It was something built through trust, growth, and resilience. And in time, the world that once rejected her began to celebrate her. Not as a waitress, not as someone's charity, but as a woman who transformed her life. A woman who became a queen, not by title, but by strength. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and engage with the video. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. Because sometimes the most powerful transformations don't come from wealth or status. They come from believing, just once, that you are more than the world told you. And Elara? She finally believed it.